Hey, welcome back to Evil's Comics. I'm Evil Mike, or Mike if you prefer, and this is going to be my live reading of Stephen King's The Gunslinger Revised Edition. This is part four, the finale. We are at the very last chapter, which is chapter five, The Gunslinger and the Man in Black. I went ahead and put all these in a playlist, so if you have not listened to the story and want to, you can go back and listen to it. I'm going to touch base with who's here, and then we're going to get to reading. At the very end of this, I might put out a link if you have any questions or whatever, or want to talk about this further than what we did on last Saturday's live. But we got AR, hello from Derry, Maine. I love that. That's one of my holy locations in the world. What's up, Las Cruces? And I understand you've been there with me pretty much the whole trek, Las Cruces. I thank you. What's up, Trev, homie? Just spent some time over on Trev, bagging and boarding. What's up, Bud? How you doing, the Bud Files? Psychedelic Comics. Hey, what's up, Paul? We got Boggs. What's up, Will? How you doing? Miss So, how you doing, Miss So? Big Heart. I don't see it. It don't work with the Android. What's with the Android? I can't do the hard stuff. All right. So again, this is Stephen King, The Gunslinger, Book One in the Dark Tower series, the Revised Edition. We are at Chapter Five, The Gunslinger and the Men in Black. I'll show you the little like outro, and because last time we got to see some how we lost David, how he friended and betrayed David. So we are at Chapter Five. It's going to be sub Chapter One on page 209. Give me 1 second. All right. The man in black led him to an ancient killing ground to make palaver. The gunslinger knew it immediately. A Golgotha, a place of the skull, and bleached skulls started blandly up at them. Cattle, coyotes, deers, rabbits, bumbler. Here, the alabaster xylophone of a hen pheasant killed as she fed. There, the tiny, delicate bones of a mole, perhaps killed for pleasure by a wild dog. What's up, Kennedy? Hope you're doing good. The Golgotha was a bowl intended into the descending slope of the mountain, and below, in easier altitudes, the gunslinger could see Joshua trees and shrub firs. The sky overhead was a softer blue than he had seen for a 12-month, and there was an indefinable something that spoke of the sea in the not too great distance. I am the West, Cuthbert, he thought, wondering. If this is not Midworld, it's close by. The man in black sat on an ancient ironwood log. His boots were powdered white with dust and the uneasy bone meal of this place. He had put his hood up again, but the gunslinger could see the square shape of his chin clearly and the shading of his jaw. The shadowed lines twitched in a smile. Gather wood, gunslinger. The side of the mountain is gentle, but at this altitude, a cold still may put a knife in one's belly. And this is the place of death, eh? I'll kill you, the gunslinger said. No, you won't. You can't. But you can gather wood to remember your Isaac. The gunslinger had no understanding of the reference. He had went wordlessly and gathered wood like a common cook's boy. The pickings were slim. There were no devil grass on the side, and the ironwood would not burn. It had become stone. He returned finally with a large armload of likely sticks, powdered and dusted with disintegrating bone, and as if he dipped in flour. The sun had sunk beyond the highest Joshua trees, and he had taken on a reddish glow. It peered at them with baleful indifference. Excellent, the man said. How exceptional you are. How methodical. How forceful. I salute you. He giggled, and the gunslinger dropped the wood at his feet with a crash that ballooned up bone dust. The man in black did not start or jump. He barely began laying the fire. The gunslinger watched fascinated as the ideogram, fresh this time, took shape. When it finished, it resembled a small and complex double chimney about 2 feet high. The man in black lifted his hand skyward, shaking back the voluminous sleeve with a tapered, handsome hand, and brought it down rapidly, index and pinky fingers forked out in the traditional sign of the evil eye. There was a blue flash of flame, and the fire was lighted. I have matches, the man in black said jovially, but I thought you might enjoy the magic for a pretty gunslinger. Now cook our dinner. The folds of the robe shivered, and he plucked the gutted carcass of a plump rabbit fell on the dirt. The gunslinger spitted the rabbit wordlessly and roasted it. A savory smell drifted up as the sun went down. Purple shadows drifted hungrily over the bowl where the man in black had chosen to finally face him. The gunslinger felt hungry, began to rumble endlessly in his belly as the rabbit browned. But when the meat was cooked and its juices sealed in, he handed the entire skewer wordlessly to the man in black, rummaging in his own nearby flat knapsack, and withdrew the last of his jerky. It was salty, painfully to his mouth, and tasted like tears. That's a worthless gesture, the man in black said, managing to sound angry and amused at the same time. Nevertheless, the gunslinger said, there were tiny sores in his mouth, the result of vitamin deprivation, and the salt taste made him grin bitterly. Are you afraid of enchanted meat? Yes, indeed. The man in black slipped his hood back. The gunslinger looked at him silently. In a way, the face the hood had hidden was uneasy disappointment. It was handsome with none of the marks, twist which indicate a man who had been through awesome times and has been privy to great secrets. His hair was black and of a ragged, matted length. His forehead was high, his eyes dark and brilliant. His nose was nondescript. The lips were full and sensual. His complexion was pallid as the gunslinger's own. The gunslinger said finally, I expected an older man. Why, I'm nearly immortal, as are you, Roland. For now, at least, I could have taken a face with which you would have been more familiar. But I elected to show you the one I was, born with. See, gunslinger, the sunset. The sun had departed already, and the western sky was filled with sullen furnace light. You won't see another sunrise for what may seem a very long time, the man in black said. The gunslinger remembered the pit under the mountains, and then looked at the sky, where the constellations sprawled in clockspring profusion. Doesn't matter, he said softly. Now. Subchapter 2, on Chapter 5, page 212. The man in black shuffled the cards with flying hands, the deck with the designs of the back convoluted. These are tarot cards, gunslinger, of a sort, a mixture in the standard deck to which had been added a selection of my own development. Now, watch carefully. What will I watch? I'm going to tell you your future. 7 cards must be turned, one at a time, placed in conjunction with the others. I'm not done this since the days when Gilead stood and ladies played at points on the West Lawn. And I suspect I've never read a tale such as yours. Mockery was creeping into his voice again. You are the world's last adventurer, the last crusader. How that must please you, Roland. Yet you have no idea how close you stand to the tower now, as you resume your quest. Worlds turn about your head. What do you mean, resume? I never left off. At this, the man in black laughed heartily, but would not say what he found so funny. Read my fortune, then, Roland said harshly. The first card was turned. The hangman, the man in black said. The darkness had given him back his hood. Yet there, in conjunction with nothing else, it signifies strength, not death. You, gunslinger, are the hanged man, plodding ever onward toward your goal over the pits of Niar. You already dropped one co-traveler into the pit, have you not? The gunslinger said nothing, and the second card was turned. The sailor. Note the clear brow, the hairless cheeks, the wounded eyes. He drowns, gunslinger. No one throws out the line. The boy Jake. The gunslinger winced, said nothing. The third card was turned. A baboon stood grimly astride a young man's shoulder. The young man's face was turned up, a grimace of stylized dread and horror on his features. Looking more closely, the gunslinger saw the baboon held a whip. The prisoner, the man in black said. The fire cast uneasy, flickering shadows over the face of the riddled man, making it seem to move and writhe in wordless terror. The gunslinger flicked his eyes away. A trifle upsetting, isn't he? The man in black said, and seemed on the verge of sniggering. He took the fourth card. A woman with a shawl over her head sat spinning at a wheel. To the gunslinger's dazed eyes, she appeared to be smiling craftily and sobbing at the same time. The Lady of Shadows, the man in black remarked. Does she look two-faced to you, gunslinger? She is. Two faces at least. She broke the blue plate. What do you mean? I don't know. In any case, at least, the gunslinger thought his adversary was telling the truth. Let's read that again. I don't know. And in this case, at least, the gunslinger thought his adversary was telling the truth. Why are you showing me these? Don't ask, the man in black said sharply, yet he smiled. Don't ask, merely watch. Consider this only pointless ritual if it eases you and cools you to do so, like church. He teetered and turned the fifth card. A grim reaper clutched a scythe with bony fingers. Death, the man in black said simply, yet not for you. The sixth card. The gunslinger looked at it and felt a strange, crawling anticipation in his guts. The feeling was mixed with horror and joy, and the whole of the emotion was unnameable. It made him feel like throwing up and dancing up at the same time. The tower, the man in black said softly. Here is the tower. The gunslinger's card occupied the center of the pattern. Each of the following four stood at one corner, like satellites circling a star. Where does that one go? The gunslinger asked. The man in black placed the tower over the hanged man, covering it completely. What does that mean? The gunslinger asked. The man in black did not answer. What does that mean? He asked raggedly. The man in black did not answer. God damn you. No answer. Then be damned to you. What's the seventh card? The man in black turned the seventh. A sun rose in a luminous blue sky. Cupids and sprites sprouted around it. Below the sun was a great red field upon it which it shone. Roses, or blood? The gunslinger could not tell. Perhaps he thought it's both. The seventh card is life, the man in black said softly. But not for you. Where does it fit the pattern? This is not for you to know now, the man in black said, or for me to know. I'm not the great one you seek, Roland. I am merely his emissary. He flipped the card carelessly into the dying fire. It charred, curled, and flashed to flame. The gunslinger felt his heart quell and then ice in his chest. Sleep now, the man in black said carelessly. Perhaps to dream, that sort of thing. What my bullets won't do, mayhap my hands will, the gunslinger said. His legs coiled with savage, splendid suddenness, and he flew across the fire at the other, arms outstretched. The man in black smiling, swelling in a vision, and then he retreated down a long, echoing corridor. The world filled with the sound of sardonic laughter as he was falling, dying, sleeping. He dreamed. Subchapter 3. Page 215 of chapter 5. The universe was void. Nothing moved. Nothing was. The gunslinger drifted, bemused. Let's have a little light, the voice of the man in black said nonchalantly, and there was light. The gunslinger thought in a detached way that the light was pretty good. Now, darkness overhead with stars in it. Water down below. It happened. He drifted over endless seas. Above the stars twinkled endlessly. Yet he saw none of the constellations which had guided him across his long life. Land! The man in black invited, and there was. It heaved itself out of the water in endless galvanic convulsions. It was red, arid, cracked, and glazed with sterility. Volcanoes blurted endlessly, magma like giant pimples on some ugly adolescent's baseball head. Okay, the man in black said. That's a start. Let's have some plants, trees, grass, and fields. There was. Dinosaurs rambled here and there, growling and woofing and eating each other and getting stuck in bubbling odoriferous tar pits. Huge tropical rainforests sprawled everywhere. Giant birds waved at the sky with saturated leaves. Beetles with two heads crawled on some of them. All this the gunslinger saw, and yet he felt big. Now, bring man, the man in black said softly, but the gunslinger was falling up. The horizon of the vast and fecund earth began to curve. Yes, they had all said it curved. This, Teacher Vanny had claimed it had been proved long before the world had moved on. But this, further and further and higher, continents took shape before his amazed eyes and were obscured with clock springs of clouds. The world's atmosphere held in a platonic sack, and the sun rising beyond the earth's shoulders. He cried out and threw an arm before his eyes. Let there be light! The voice no longer belonged to the man in black. It was gigantic, echoing. It filled space and the spaces between space. Light! Falling. The sun shrank. A red planet, stamped with canals, whirled past him, two moons circling it furiously. Beyond this was a whirling belt of stones and a gigantic planet that seethed with gases too huge to support itself, oblate in consequence. Further out was a ringed world that glittered like precious gem within its engirdlement of icy sepals. Light, let there be. Other worlds, 1, 2, 3, far beyond the last one lovely. Ball of ice and rock twirled in dead darkness about a sun that glittered no brighter than a tarnished penny. Beyond this, darkness. No, said the gunslinger, and his word on it was flat, echoless in the black. It was darker than dark, blacker than black. Besides this, the darker night of a man's soul was as noonday, the darkness under the mountains, a merged smudge on the face of light. No more, please, no more now, no more. Light. No more, please. The stars themselves began to shrink. Whole nebula drew together and became glowing smudges. The whole universe seemed to be drawing around them. Please, no more, no more, no more. The voice of the man in black whispered sulkily in his ear. Then revenge. Cast away all thoughts of the tower. Go your way, gunslinger, and begin the long job of saving your soul. He gathered himself, shaken and alone, unwrapped in the darkness, terrified of the ultimate meaning rushing at him. He gathered himself and uttered the final answer on that subject. Never. Then let there be light. And there was light, crashing in on him like a hammer. A great primordial light. Consciousness had no chance of survival in the great glare. But before it perished, the gunslinger saw something clearly, something he believed to be of cosmic importance. He clutched it with agonizing effort, and then went deep, seeking refuge in himself before the light should blind his eyes and blast his sanity. He fed the light, and the knowledge the light implied, and so came back to himself. Ever so do so the rest of us, even so the best of us. Subchapter 4 is going to be chapter 5, page 218. And on that, we're going to take a 1 minute break real quick. Give me 1 second. It truly is. It truly is. All right. Subchapter 4, chapter 5, page 218. It was still night, whether the same or another. He had no immediate way of knowing. He pushed himself from where his demon spring at the man in black had carried him and looked at the ironwork where Walter O'Dim, as some along Roland's way had named him, had been sitting. He was gone. A great sense of despair flooded him. God, all that to do over again. And the man in black said from behind him, "Over here, gunslinger. I don't like you so close. You talk in your sleep." He teetered. The gunslinger got groggily to his knees and turned around. The fire had burned down to red embers and gray ashes, leaving the familiar decayed pattern of exhausted fuel. The man in black was seated next to it, smacking his lips with unlovingly enthusiasm over the greasy remains of the rabbit. "You did fairly well," the man in black said. I never come, I never could have sent that vision to your father. He would have come back drooling." "What was it?" the gunslinger asked. The words were blurred and shaky. He felt that if he tried to rise, his legs would buckle. "The universe," the man in black said carelessly. He burped, threw the bones into the fire where they first glistened and then blackened. The wind above the cup of the Golgotha neighed and moaned. "Universe," the gunslinger said blankly. It was a word with which he was unfamiliar. His first thought was that the other was speaking poetry. "You want the tower?" the man in black said. It seemed to be a question. "Yes." "Well, you shan't have it," the man in black said and smiled with bright cruelty. "No one cares in the council of the great if you pawn, you soul, or you sell it outright. Roland, I have an idea of how close to the edge that lash pushed you. The tower will kill you half a world away. And you know nothing of me," the gunslinger said quietly, and the smile faded from the other's lips. "I made your father, and I broke him," the man in black said grimly. "I came to your mother as Martin. There's the truth you always expected, is it not? And took her. She bent beneath like a willow. Although, and this may comfort you, she never broke. In any case, it was written, and it was, I am the furthest minion of he who now rules the Dark Tower, and earth had been given into the king's red hand." "Red? Why do you say red?" "Never mind. We will not speak of him, although you'll learn more than you cared to if you press on. What hurt you once will hurt you twice. This is not the beginning, but the beginning's end. You'll do well to remember that, but you never do." "I don't understand." "No, you don't. You never did. You never will. You have no imagination. You're blind that way." "What did I see?" the gunslinger asked. "What did I see at the end? What was it?" "What did it seem to be?" The gunslinger was silent, thoughtful. He felt for his the man, oop, and there was none. The man in black did not offer to refill his poke, but either black magic or white. Later he might find more in his grow bag, but later seemed very far away now. "There was a light," the gunslinger said finally, "a great white light. And then—" He broke off and stared at the man in black. He was leaning forward, and an alien emotion was stamped on his face, writ too large for lies or denial. It was awe or wonder. Perhaps they were the same. You don't know, he said, and began to smile. Oh, great sorcerer who brings the dead to life, you don't know. You're a fake. I know, the man in black said, but I don't know what. White light, the gunslinger repeated, and then a blade of grass, one single blade of grass that filled everything. And I was tiny, infinitesimal. Grass? The man in black closed his eyes. His face looked drawn and haggard. A blade of grass, are you sure? Yes, the gunslinger frowned, but it was purple. Hear me now, Roland, son of Stephen. Would you hear me? Yes. And so the man in black began to speak. Subchapter 5 of Chapter 5, page 220. 1 second. The universe, he said, is the great all, and offers a paradox too great for the finite mind to grasp. As the living brain cannot conceive of a non-living brain, although it may think it can, the finite mind cannot grasp the infinity. The prosaic fact of the universe's existence alone defeats both the pragmatic and the romantic. There was a time, yet 100 generations before the world moved on, when mankind had achieved enough technical and scientific prowess to chip a few splinters from the great stone pillar of reality. Even so, the false light of science, knowledge, if you like, shone in only a few developed countries. One company, or cabal, led the way in this regard, North Central Postronics. It called itself. Yet despite a tremendous increase in available facts, there was remarkably few insights. Gunslinger, or many times great gunfathers, conquered the disease which rots, which they called cancer, almost conquered aging, walked on the moon. I don't believe that, the gunslinger said flatly. To this the man in black merely smiled and answered, You needn't. Yet it was so. They made or discovered 100 other marvelous Bibles, but this wealth or information produced little or no insight. There was no great odes written to the wonders of artificial insemination, having babies from frozen man sperm, or to the cars that ran on power from the sun. Few, if any, seem to have grasped the truest principle of reality. New knowledge leads always to yet more awesome mysteries. 1 second. Greater, greater what is this word? Psychological knowledge of the brain makes the existence of the soul less possible yet more probable by the nature of the search. Do you see? Of course you don't. You reach the limits of your ability to comprehend. But never mind. That's beside the point. What is the point then? The greatest mystery the universe offers is not life, but size. Size encompasses life, and the tower encompasses size. The child, who is most at home with wonder, says, Daddy, what is above the sky? And the father says, the darkness of space. The child, what is beyond space? The father, the galaxy. The child, beyond the galaxy. The father, another galaxy. The child, beyond the other galaxies. The father, no one knows. You see, size defeats us. For the fish, the lake in which he lives in the universe, what does the fish think when he is jerked up by the mouth through the silver limits of existence and into a new universe where the air drowns him and the light is blue madness? Where huge bipeds with no gills stuff it for in a suffocating box and cover it with what reads to die. Or one might take the tip of a pencil and magnify it. One reaches the point where a stunning realization strikes home. The pencil tip is not solid. It is composed of atoms which whirl and revolve like trillion demon planets. What seems solid to us is actually only a loose net held together by gravity. Viewed at the actual size, the distance between those atoms might become leagues, gulfs, eons. The atoms themselves are composed of nuclei, revolving protons and electrons. One may step down further to subatomic particles. And then to what? Tachyons? Nothing, of course not. Everything in the universe defies nothing. To this suggest an ending is the one absurdity. If you fell outward to the limits of the universe, would you find a broad fence and a sign reading dead end? No. You might find yourself hard, rounded, as the chick might see the egg from the inside. And if you should see through the shell, or find a door, what great and torrential light might shine through your opening at the end of space? Might you look through and discover our entire universe is but a part of one atom and a blade of grass? Might you be forced to think that by burning a twig, you incinerate an, it, an eternity of eternities? That existence rises not to one infinite, but to an infinite of them. Perhaps you saw the place our universe plays in the scheme of things, as no one than an atom and a blade of grass. Could it be that everything we can perceive, from the microscopic virus to a distant horsehead nebula, is contained in one blade of grass that may have existed for only a single season in an alien time flow? What if the blade should be cut off by a scythe? When it begins to die, would the rot seep into our own universe and our own lives, turning everything yellow and brown and desiccated? Perhaps it has already begun to happen. We say the world has moved on. Maybe we really mean that it has begun to dry up. Think how small such a concept of these things make us, Gunslinger. If a god watches over it all, does he actually met out justice for a race of gnats among an infinitude of race of gnats? Does his eyes see the sparrow fall when the sparrows is less than a speck of hydrogen floating disconnected in the depth of space? And if he does, what must the nature of such a god be? Where does he live? How is it possible to live beyond infinity? Imagine the sand of the Mohaine Desert, which you crossed to find me. And imagine a trillion universes, not worlds, but universes, encapsulated in each grain of that desert, and with each universe, an infinity of others. We tower over these universes for other pitiful grass vantage point. With one swing of your boot, you may knock a billion worlds flying off into the darkness, in a chain never to be completed. Sighs, Gunslinger, sighs. Yet suppose further. Suppose that all worlds, all universes met in a single nexus, a single pylon, a tower, and with it, a stairway, perhaps rising to the Godhead itself. Would you dare climb to the top, Gunslinger? Could it be that somewhere above all of the endless reality there exists a room? You dare not. And in the Gunslinger's mind, those words echoed. You dare not. Subchapter 6, Chapter 5, page 223. Someone has dared, the Gunslinger said. Who would that be? God, the Gunslinger said softly. His eyes gleamed. God has dared. Or the king you spoke of. Or is the room empty, seer? I don't know. Fear passed over the man in black's bland face, as soft and dark as a buzzard's wing. And furthermore, I don't ask. It might be unwise. Afraid of being struck dead? Perhaps. Afraid of an accounting. The man in black was silent for a while. The night was very long. The Milky Way spread above them in great splendor, yet terrifying in the emptiness between its burned lamps. The gunslinger wondered what he would feel if the inky sky should split open and let in a torrent of light. The fire, he said. I'm cold. Build it up yourself, the man in black. It's the butler's night off. We're going to go with chapter 5, subchapter 7, page 224. The gunslinger drowsed a while and awoke to see the man in black regarding him avidly, unhealthily. What are you staring at? An old saying of Quartz occurred to him. Do you see your sister's bum? I'm staring at you, of course. Well, don't. He poked up the fire, ruining the percussion of the ideogram. I don't like it. He looked to the east to see if there was the beginning of the light, but this night went on and on. You seek the light so soon. I was made for the light. Ah, so you were, and so impolite of me to forget that fact. Yet we have much to discuss, yet you and I, for so it has been told to me by my king and my master. Who is your king? The man in black smiled. Shall we tell the truth then? You and I, no more lies? I thought we have been. But the man in black persisted as if Roland hadn't spoken. Shall there be truth between us as two men, not as friends, but as equals? There is an offer you will get rarely, Roland. Only speak the truth. That's my thought on it. Friends and lovers lie endlessly, caught in the web of regard. How tiresome. Well, I wouldn't want to tire you, so let's speak the truth. He never spoken less on that night. Start by telling me what exactly you mean by glamour. Why, enchantment, gunslinger. My king's enchantment has prolonged this night and will prolong it until our palaver is done. How long will that be? Long. I can tell you no better. I do not know myself. The man in black stood over the fire, and the glowing embers made patterns on his face. Ask. I will tell you what I know. You have caught me. It is fair. I did not think you would. Yet your quest has only begun. Ask. It will lead us to business soon enough. Who is your king? I've never seen him. But you must. But before you meet him, you must first meet the ageless stranger. The man in black smiled spitelessly. You must slay him, gunslinger. Yet I think it is not what you wish to ask. If you have never seen your king and master, how do you know him? He comes to me in dreams. As a stripling, he came to me when I lived poor and unknown in a far land. A chief of centuries ago, he imbued me with my duty and promised me my reward. Although there were many errands in my youth and the days of my manhood before my apotheosis, you are that apotheosis, gunslinger. You are my climax. He teetered. You see, someone has taken you seriously. And the stranger, does he have a name? Oh, he is named. And what is his name? Legion. The man in black said softly. Somewhere in the easterly darkness where the mountains lay, a rock slide punctuated his words, and a puma screamed like a woman. The gunslinger shivered, and the man in black flinched. Yet I do not think this is what you wish to ask, either. It is not your nature to think so far ahead. The gunslinger knew the question, and it gnawed him all this night, and he thought, for years before. It trembled on his lips, but he didn't ask it. Not yet. The stranger is a minion of the tower, like yourself? Yar. He darkles. He thinks. He's all in times. Yet there is one greater than he. Who? Ask me no more, the man in black cried. His voice aspired to a sternness and crumbled into beachment. I know not. I do not wish to know. The things of the things and end world is to speak of the ruination of one own soul. And beyond the ageless stranger is the tower, and whatever the tower contains. Yes, whispered the man in black, but none of these things are what you wish to ask. True. All right, the gunslinger said, and then asked the world's oldest question. Will I succeed? Will I win through? If I answered the question, gunslinger, you'd kill me. I ought to kill you. You need killing. His hands had dropped to the worn butts of his gun. Those do not open doors, gunslinger. They only close them. Forever. Where must I go? Start west. Go to the sea, where the world ends and where you must begin. There was a man who gave you advice. The man you bested so long ago. Yes, court. The gunslinger interrupted impatiently. The advice was to wait. It was bad advice, for even then my plans against your father had proceeded. He sent you away, and when you returned, I'd not hear you speak of that, the gunslinger said, and in his mind he heard his mom singing, Baby bunting, baby dear, baby bring your basket here. Then hear this. When you returned, Martin had gone west to join the rebels, so all said, anyway, and so believed. You, yet he and a certain witch left you a trap and fell into it. Good boy. And although Martin was long gone by then, there was a man who sometimes made you think of him, was there not? A man who affected the dress of a monk and the shaven head of a penitent. Walter, the gunslinger whispered. And although he had come so far in his musings, the bald truth still amazed him. You, Martin, never left at all? The man in black teetered. At your service. I ought to kill you now. That would hardly be fair. Besides all that was long ago, now comes the time of sharing. You never left? The gunslinger repeated, stunned. You only changed? Sit, the man in black invited. I'll tell you stories, as many as you would hear. Your own stories, I think, will be much longer. I don't talk of myself, the gunslinger muttered. Yet tonight you must, so that we may understand. Understand what? My purpose? You know that. To find the tower is my purpose. I'm sworn. Not your purpose, gunslinger, your mind. Your slow, prodding, tenacious mind. There's never been one quite like it in all the history of the world, perhaps in the history of creation. This time of speaking, this time of histories, then speak. The man in black shook the voluminous arm of his robe. A foil wrapper package fell out and caught the dying embers in many reflective folds. Tobacco, gunslinger? Would you smoke? He had been able to resist the rabbit, but he could not resist this. He opened the foil with eager fingers. There was a fine crumbling tobacco inside and green leaves to wrap it in, amazingly moist. He had not seen such tobacco for 10 years. He rolled 2 cigarettes and bit the ends of each to release the flavor. He offered one to the man in black, who took it. Each of them took a burning twig from the fire. The gunslinger lit a cigarette and drew the aromatic smoke deep into his lungs, closing his eyes to concentrate his senses. He blew out his long, slow satisfaction. It is good, the man in black inquired. Yes, very good. Enjoy it. It may be the last smoke for you in a very long time. The gunslinger took this impassively. Very well, the man in black said. To begin, then, you must understand that the tower has always been, and there have always been boys who know of it, lust of it, and more than the power, or riches, or women. Boys who took for the doors that lead to it. Subchapter 8 and Chapter 5. We're on page 229. Give me one moment. Like 1 minute. Okay, Chapter 5, Subchapter 8. We're at page 229. There was talk then, a night's worth of talk, and God alone knew how much more, or how much was true. But the gunslinger remembered little of it later, and to his oddly practical mind, little of it seemed to matter. The man in black told him again that he must go to the sea, which lay no more than 20 easy miles to the west, and there he would be invested with the power of the drawing. But, but that's not exactly right either, the man in black said, pitching the cigarette into the remains of the campfire. No one wants to invest you with power of any kind, gunslinger. It is simply in you. I'm compelled to tell you, partly because of the sacrifice of the boy, and partly because it is law, the natural law of things. Water must run downhill. 1 second. Water must run downhill, and you must be told. You will draw three. I understand. I don't really care. I don't really want to know. The three, the gunslinger murmured, thinking of the oracle. And then the fun begins. But by then, I'll be long gone. Goodbye, gunslinger. My part is done now. The chain is still in your hands, where it doesn't wrap itself around your neck. Compelled by something outside him, Roland said, You have one more thing to say, don't you? Yes, the man in black said. He smiled at the gunslinger. With his depthless eyes, he stretched one of his hands out toward him. Let there be light! And then there was light, and this time the light was good. We're at chapter 5, subchapter 9, page 230. Roland awoke by the ruins of the campfire to find himself 10 years older. His black hair had thinned at the temples, and there had gone the gray of cobwebs at the end of autumn. The lines in his face were deeper, his skin rougher. The remains of the wood he had carried had turned to something like stone, and the man in black was a laughing skeleton in a rotted black robe. More bones in this place of bones, one more skull in the Golgotha. Was it really you? He thought. I have my doubts, Walter O'Dim. I have my doubts, Martin that was. He stood up and looked around. Then with a sudden quick gesture, he reached toward the remains of his companion of the night before. If it was indeed the remains of Walter, a night that has somehow lasted 10 years, he broke off the grinning jawbone and jammed it carelessly into his left hip pocket of his jeans, a fitting enough replacement for the one lost under the mountains. How many lies did you tell me? He asked. Many, he was sure, but what made good lies was that they had been mixed with the truth. The tower, somehow ahead, it waited for him. The nexus of time, the nexus of size. He began west again, his back set against the sunrise, heading towards the ocean, realizing that a great passage of his life had come and gone. I loved you, Jake, he said aloud. 1 second. The stiffness wore out of his body, and he began to walk more rapidly. By the evening, he had come to the end of the land. He sat on the beach with stretched land, which stretched left and right forever, deserted. The waves beat endlessly against the shore, pounding and pounding. The settling sun painted the water in a wide strip of fool's gold. There the gunslinger sat, his face turned up into the fading light. He dreamed his dreams and watched as the stars came out. His purpose did not flag, nor did his heart falter. His hair, finer now, and gray at the temples, blew around his head, and the sandalwood ingrayed guns of his father lay smooth and deadly against his hips. And he was lonely, but did not find loneliness in any way a bad or an ignoble thing. The dark came down, and the world moved on. The gunslinger waited for the time of the drawing, and dreamed his long dreams of the dark tower, to which he would someday come at dusk, and approach, winding his horn to do some unimaginable final battle. And that is the end of the gunslinger. That's it. The end. All right, bye. No, I'm kidding. And yes, but that is the end of the gunslinger. Um, in totality, there's the first book. I don't know what else to say. I thank y'all for watching. I can throw down a link if anybody wants to hop on and talk about it, and if not, I will end the stream and that will be it. Actually, I don't even know if I can drop the link in it. Oh, yeah, I can. Yeah, I can. Yeah, I can. That story is so dope. It's so fun. This is just book 1 out of 8. Technically 7, but 8. Thanks, Trev. Play one of my little things again. I like. Originally written in 1978 was the first copyright, but officially in novel form, 1982. This is the revised version. This is from 2003. Most of the books were done in the I want to say 80s to 90s, like the first 4, I think. And spraying. Where's the music? Yeah, but that's all I got. That is the end. I'm gonna go ahead and end it since nobody's hopping on. But I do thank y'all for listening to this. If this is something that you're watching on the rewind or something like that, I really do appreciate it. I would like feedback if y'all like this, the voices, all that kind of stuff. If y'all want me to read more books, I'm into that kind of thing. I haven't started the second book yet, but I'm going to sometime this weekend. But that's all I got for you guys. Thanks for listening to this audio version of the book read by me. All right, guys. Thanks.